Today I'm joined by Dave Wheeler, who is the Provincial Grand Master for the province of Lincolnshire. And he is here today to talk about the UGLE 7-year strategy, which was announced by Jonathan Spence in December 2022, talking about the future of Freemasonry in the UK. Well, actually, England and Wales, isn't it?
England and Wales.
Thanks for joining me today, Dave.
Great. It's great to be here.
Thank you. The first question about the UGLE 7-year strategy is that the Programme Master talked about the importance of communication and openness within Freemasonry. How can individual lodges foster a culture of open dialogue and transparency both within their membership and the wider community?
Well, there are three pillars to the strategy, and what Jonathan Spence wants us to promote is a thriving membership organisation. He wants us to engage with our communities, and he wants us to enjoy our Freemasonry. So if you take those three parts separately, for lodges, that translates to having a really dynamic and happy lodge where people can get involved. They're not waiting for years to do things. They are embraced at the beginning, and then that journey continues throughout their Masonic career. That they invite their friends to socials, engage with the communities, and enjoy what they do. And if people aren't enjoying what they're doing, they're probably not going to stay. So it's critical that people have a good time, enjoy it. And I think the phrase that we've used a few times is that it's fun, but not funny. So people enjoy what they do, but not at anybody else's expense.
Also, the Programme Master discussed the need to be more inclusive and diverse. Do you think that is the case?
I think we always have been, to be fair. We have a mixture of all sorts of different people from different backgrounds, different races, different religions in Freemasonry. And I think we've been much more open in the last 5 years, particularly in engaging with external groups. And I think a good example is the Order of Women's Freemasons. We've invited them to functions that we've been attending, and they've come in large numbers and enjoyed it. And I've arranged a meeting with the Order of Women Freemasons, their regional coordinator, so we can talk with them about the strategy and how we can integrate together. So I think the question that most Freemasons get asked, often by their wives or partners, is it just a men-only organisation? And of course we are, but there are women's lodges, and they do meet in this province, and they do sort of work together with us as often as we can.
You said fun but not funny. What fun do you get out of Freemasonry?
Well, I think I enjoy all aspects of Freemasonry. I think that seeing ritual done well is really enjoyable. I'm not saying that's me that does ritual well, but I think people appreciate if someone's tried their best and they do a piece of ritual to their best efforts. That's very supportive and really enjoyable. I think that on occasions there are moments of humour, whether accidental or deliberate, in an evening, and I think we are allowed to actually enjoy those and speak about them. Whereas perhaps years ago it was all very dark and everything had to be perfect, and there were lots of people tutting if it didn't go quite to plan. Well, I think life doesn't always go to plan, and if mistakes are made, we just absorb them and move on. So I think people trying their best, and I certainly think there's a little bit more interaction at the festive board now than there used to be, and a bit of banter, friendly banter, and people seem to enjoy that as well.
Again, our chief steward does mix us up a bit. There tends to be kind of cliques, and people sitting in the same place. If you mix it up, you'll get the younger lads in with the older ones.
Yeah, and you meet people you've never met before, and certainly in my own lodge, when I go on official team visits, I have to sit in a certain place, and that I can live with that. But in my own lodge and my own chapter, I sit where I like or where I'm put, and that's often right at the far end of the longest table, and you chat to people you've never met before. I think it's great for me to find out what's happening, and it's really interesting perhaps for them to have a chat and find out what's happening in the province.
Coming back to membership and retention, I'd like to talk about retention. They reckon probably 1 in 5 people don't actually make it to their 3rd degree ceremony. Why is that?
Well, I think the misapprehension that that our province has been under, and probably other regional provinces, is this was just a London-based issue, but it's not. It's a nationwide issue. And I think it could be a variety of things. We do ask people before they leave or when we know they're going to leave, but they're not always probably telling us the real reasons that they leave. Personally, I think it could be an offhand comment or something that just puts somebody off, or they're not made as welcome as they were when they first came in, and that welcome doesn't continue. So when you're initiated,
You are the main man,
you are
aren't
the
you?
main man, top table, toast and everything. The next meeting, you might be a little bit lost, and unless somebody puts their arm around you and talks to you and makes you welcome, you might suddenly find that you're not quite sure what to do. And I think, again, if people miss meetings for genuine reasons, we're all busy. So if people miss meetings through work, give their apologies. The last thing they want at their next meeting is somebody to say, why weren't you at the last meeting? Because that could be quite intrusive. I take the opinion that we're all grown-ups. And if people can't make meetings, they've got a good reason. I think it's courteous to give your apologies, to say you can't come. But that's the end of it. There's a reason that people couldn't be there.
But also, if they weren't there, then it needs to be recognised. Are you okay?
Yeah, and probably that's more of the question. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Rather than why weren't you at the last meeting? Or as has happened recently, somebody's walked into a lodge and been confronted by the treasurer who said, oh, I'm pleased you're here this month. You owe me this from last month. That's not the nicest of welcomes. So I think that can be part of it. I also think that genuinely our unsupported candidates who come through not knowing any Freemasons get an awful lot of attention, and they do a lot of research, and they know what they're likely to expect.
Because it blew my mind. I was speaking to Dave Buckingham that internet candidates and social media candidates are a lot stickier and stay with us longer than those that have been introduced.
Yeah,
that blew my mind.
Well, I think if you look back to my day, my father was a Mason. He wanted me to join. I said, what's it all about? And he said, I can't tell you. And never did tell me, and wouldn't tell me. That was a long time ago. But I still think there is that attitude with people who invite their friends. They don't want to give away any secrets, which I understand, and we wouldn't. But invite those people to socials, invite those people to barbecues, to open days, so they get the same care and attention that an unsupported candidate, as we'd call an internet candidate, would get. The process has got to be the same for all joiners and all candidates, not just a few. And I also think that there is probably a belief that if you know somebody that you're going to introduce and your friend knows them as well, you don't need to do your due diligence. You just say, well, I know them, my friend knows them, and that's good enough. And those people are missing out on the understanding of what it's all about. And when they come in, it might be something that they completely didn't expect. And I think that's a big issue. I think we've got to be open about the costs and the time commitment. We've got to tell people that it's not only your subscription, it's your meal and potentially a donation and potentially raffle, and add that all together.
And the magic 8 meetings a year. My wife says that
you've
had those up by the end of February.
Yeah, and I've told this story before, but I went to a presentation when I was membership officer from two brethren from a southern province who had 42 house bricks at the side of the room. And the first one said 8 meetings a year, 1 house brick. Oh, and then rehearsals, another house brick. And then we have a ladies' night, another house brick. And then we've got a social and a barbecue and a rehearsal and a practice. And then there's chapter and then mark and everything else. And within 5 minutes of having that conversation, 42 house bricks piled up in the middle of the room. And then the punchline was, it's only one night a month, 8 months of the year. And I think we, as an executive, have to take notice of the fact that people are very busy. When they come in, they go at their own pace. There's no rush to get anywhere. Those who want to progress should be encouraged. But those who can't because of a young family or work commitments or shifts or travel, it's a 24/7 world nowadays. We need to cater for them as well.
Talking of further degrees and further side orders, do you think that they are as relevant? I know you're in charge of Craft and Royal Arch, so some of this is not under your remit, but do you think there's almost too many side orders now for the 21st century, or was that it's always been the case?
Not at all, no, and there are newer orders coming through all the time. We have a heads of orders meeting every year in Lincolnshire that I called when I first started as Provincial Grand Master, and it's very well attended. we actually don't call them side orders anymore. There's a whole range of phraseology. It's gone from side orders to progressive orders to complementary orders, and the new phrase, which is shared by the other orders, is now companion orders, because we do work together. And the bottom line is you can't be a craft Freemason and then you have to be a craft Freemason to join the other orders. So the craft is still essential bedrock. And then really there's a journey in Freemasonry that people can follow. I'm in 5 different things, and that's plenty for me. But I know people who are in 30 different things, and they're still looking for new ideas to follow and new curiosities to answer.
What do you think are the purpose of these companion lodges?
I think it's a different story. Obviously, craft and chapter work together to complete the story. And then the other parts, people have an interest in the Crusades, people have an interest in the operative side of Masonry, the buildings and that sort of thing. And they're all very ancient. The newest order is the Order of Athelstan, which goes back to sort of before King Arthur's time. They're the newest order, but they say they're the fastest growing order in the country because people are interested in that historical aspect, although the membership isn't huge, but it is one of the fastest growing orders.
Do you think these side degrees or side orders affect the overall coherence and unity of the whole organisation?
Not at all. I think it's a menu of different interests that people discover. And I'll put that back to you, Chris. When you joined Freemasonry, did you know initially there was craft and chapter?
No, I didn't.
No, which is a shame because you should have done. That should have been explained to you. And then, of course, when you join craft and you see people wearing different things and talking about different things, did you then know there were 30-something different orders you could go into? And I think it's the same as any organisation. There are different paths people can follow. And that's when the 8 nights a year really does become a fallacy, when people are in so many different things. They're out every night of the year and at lunchtime as well.
The Programme Master said also in his 7-year strategy that, and I quote, Freemasonry has historically been seen as somewhat secretive and exclusive. How can lodges work to dispel those perceptions and promote a more open and inclusive image?
Okay, I mean, the first thing that struck me as Provincial Grand Master was that of our 21 centres, you had to know where they were and what they were to discover them. So you may have noticed that every centre in Lincolnshire now has got a big sign on the wall that says Lincolnshire Freemasons, for example, Grantham, Lincolnshire Freemasons, Lincoln. And the number of comments we've had about people going past saying, well, I didn't know that's where the Freemasons met. I think that's part of a corporate identity, that we want to belong to an organisation that is part of the community. And then we want the community to know that we're there. I think the next thing that's really important is for lodges to engage with their community. And the best way of doing that is to hold open days and let people come in and see what we are and what we do, and to tell people what we actually do and not what they might think that we do. The perception of Freemasonry is very stark in some people, very black and white, but we can say this is what we actually do. And we do have a group of speakers that will go out to outside organisations. COVID obviously hit that quite hard. We've only done a few talks, but it's important for our members to know that we do that, because if their wives, partners or friends have a group that want a guest speaker, then we're very happy to go out and speak about Freemasonry very openly at a community setting.
I can only talk personally, but I talk about myself being a Freemason and what it does for myself and the community. And I get an awful lot of good feedback from that. But interestingly, there was one person actually said that he felt that this openness was putting people off because we weren't so as secretive and as exclusive.
I think that's going to be the side of a coin, isn't it? If we weren't open, people said that we were secretive. If we become more open, people say we're too open and we're not secretive. I think one of the biggest things that we can say to our communities is that Freemasonry nationally gives £60,000 a day through the Masonic Charitable Foundation to non-Masonic charities. Now, if that isn't a thing that we can talk about openly and publicly, then I don't know what we can talk about. I mean, that is a massive amount of money to charities that have no connection with Freemasonry, but all of the money's come from Freemasons.
Moving on, Jonathan said that the importance of strong leadership within individual lodges is so important. How can lodges cultivate effective leaders, and what are some of the key qualities that these successful leaders in Freemasonry should progress?
Okay, again, from my perspective, taking over from Graham Ives, and Graham had done a fantastic job. We had individuals taking the responsibility for some very, very big projects. Now I encourage people to have a team around them. So for me, the way to encourage leadership is that we have a lead for each area, such as charity steward, the festival, almoner, membership. But they then introduce other people onto their team, and communications is a good example, so that not only the workload is spread, but we identify people who are willing to commit and can do good things for us. And I think that in itself is more inclusive. I think lodges can have the same ethos where it's not just the master who runs the lodge, it's the master, the secretary, the treasurer, the DC, and then what we would call probably loosely a care team. So your almoner, your mentor, your membership, all working together so that they can identify any issues within the lodge, work out what the lodge is doing well, identify people coming through, and then hopefully give them the opportunity to shine.
Almost like a classic, I know we're not a business, but that's how a good business is run, isn't it?
Yeah, people say to me, you know, are we corporate? No, we're not, but we should have a corporate image. We should all know what we stand for. Are we a business? No, we're not, but we should have a business-like approach.
The Programme Master discussed the role of Freemasonry in promoting personal growth and self-improvement. What do you think Freemasons actually does for men?
Well, I can only speak for me personally. It gave me a lot of confidence when I first joined. Certainly in public speaking, when you learn a piece of ritual and do it in a supportive group and get a tremendous support, even if it doesn't quite go to plan, then speaking in front of an audience with notes can't be hard. So for me, it gave me that confidence to speak publicly. I also think we can introduce things into Freemasonry. For example, we've paid for mental health awareness training for that to be delivered to Freemasons, and people have gone and been trained in mental health awareness. Well, that isn't just a Freemasonry issue, it's a community issue. It could be a family issue. So I think we can give those sort of opportunities as well. But I think it's different for everybody. What it did for me might not be what it does for you or anybody else. Certainly for me, confidence, friendship, and I've said it before, at a very, very busy time in my life, to actually go to a lodge, go through a very set procedure, know what was happening next, have an enjoyable festive board. It was almost like time out.
It is time out, isn't it?
Walking out the door, and then the phone comes on and it starts ringing again and everything goes back to chaos. So for me, it was a really enjoyable place to go, and still is. And as Provincial Grand Master, I can be quite busy, but I never tire of the feeling when I've left the lodge and I'm thinking, what a great night that was.
What would your message be to any young Mason who is feeling bamboozled by doing all this ritual or not understanding what's happening?
Well, I think we can all put ourselves in his shoes. I remember I was completely bamboozled for quite a long time, and some would say I still am, about the whole business of Freemasonry. And I just think go at your own pace. There is no rush. There's no rush to get through. Some people are ambitious and want to do everything quickly. There's opportunities for that. But I think it's for individuals to go at their own pace. And I would say, even if it's confusing and difficult, stick with it, because the longer you're in, the more you understand, the more people you get to know, the more you start to enjoy it. And I would rather people kept their membership now, if they're busy and can't attend, and then got fully involved in a few years' time when they're less busy or have more opportunity, than join and leave and never come back.
Could we just spend a couple of minutes on progressing your Masonic career? You said there are Freemasons out there who want to progress, but that could be sometimes at the detriment of the individual lodge, the brother himself, or Freemasonry as a whole.
Well, I'm not sure really. It's what suits the individual. And when I say progress, it might be that people progress to take a lodge office. So you don't have to go through the ladder of all the offices and be worshipful master to be the lodge secretary or the lodge treasurer. So we have professional people joining Freemasonry with a range of skills. And I think it would be remiss of the organisation not to make use of those skills. So in my own lodge, the current treasurer has got 5 years in Freemasonry. The current secretary has got 5 years in Freemasonry. They can do work on the floor when they want to, and at an appropriate time, they will go back into the lodge ladder as junior warden and then go through the chair if they wish to.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to prepare themselves for advancement?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because there are two answers really. If people are being progressed too quickly, they might struggle and not be able to cope. So they've got to be strong enough to say, I'm not ready at the moment, or I don't wish to go on. Some people might just enjoy the meeting and the meal, and the phrase is knife and fork masons, but I don't understand that. I just think if people enjoy the whole evening, that's what they're there for.
Well, everyone can't be the provincial Grand Master, can they?
No, and we've only had 17 in the history of the province of Lincolnshire.
And how old's the province?
Well, over 200 years old, 250 years old. No, they can't, but there are opportunities for people to progress should they wish to. I think the highlight of any Freemason's career, they would say, is those who've been through the chair of their own lodge. That is a very special year, a very special night. And beyond that, there is an issue then, the year after immediate past master, about keeping people engaged and occupied. That's the second most vulnerable group of people that might leave. So for me, it's progress at your own pace. Don't put yourself under too much pressure. But if you thrive and relish doing ritual and want to be involved, there are so many opportunities to do that. But you can still progress at your own pace.
Final question on the 7-year strategy. The Programme Master emphasised the importance of values like integrity, honesty and respect within Freemasonry. How can lodges promote these values and ensure that they're upheld by all the members?
I think it's just treating people as you would expect to be treated yourself. We do have a framework of rules that we follow, and we expect people to follow those rules. We do have certain things that we do and we don't do, such as we don't discuss religion or politics, which to me is absolutely brilliant because there aren't many arguments, are there, at festive boards? And the whole point of there is enjoying yourself and making sure that other people enjoy themselves, for me. So it's just behaving properly, and I think some of the values that we talk about in Freemasonry are values that are disappearing within normal society. So that's really important.
What we'll do is we'll put a link to the 7-year strategy in the write-up on YouTube, so people can have a look at that themselves. Yeah. Thank you for that, Dave, for that insight on the 7-year strategy. And just before you go, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the whole province for the 5 years that you've been our PGM, leading and guiding us and supporting us on our journey.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the opportunity to talk in this medium. Really enjoyed it.